Well, Eric, we're back with another week and happy to have you as it looks like you've been traveling a little bit going on. So I always appreciate you hopping on for these calls for kind of just getting the latest look at the weather. And speaking of which, I think the big news was, of course, some decent sized storms that had hit the south and southeast this past weekend. Pretty well forecasted for many folks of just the capacity of precipitation that was expected to come through the area. Kind of give us a little bit of a recap on that. And as we're continuing this conversation of soil moisture deficits in parts of the U.S. and how this is impacting that.
Well, I mean, it's a good thing to ask because we watched one storm system roll across this whole southern tier of the U.S. And yeah, there was severe weather, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, some strong storms that got into Florida. In fact, we were a little concerned about the Daytona 500 in the tail end of those storms. But I want to point something out, like Arkansas, all right? So last year, Arkansas had record wet spring, then one of the driest falls, late summer falls on record too. So they went from like one end of the spectrum to the other. And there was really good rain that came through, but I was with a guy from Jonesboro this morning. And I just kind of told him, I'm like, look, you've recently had some really good moisture come into this area. I said, but do you understand you're still 9 inches in deficit on the whole of winter? So this is just kind of a Band-Aid put over the top of what's been a pretty dry, go of it. The good news is that the jet stream is still ready to produce western troughs, and getting the jet stream to come around like this over some sort of ridging east is going to wake the atmosphere up and hopefully start to cure some of this. So instead of looking down deep today, I'm only going to look at the top 4 inches soil moisture. And I'm just doing this to show you how hard of a cutoff line we had right there from the rainfall this weekend for so much of us in the Midwest. And as we go forward, this cutoff line is going to be a problem because as you and I are recording this midday on Monday here, we've got red flag warnings that stretch from South Dakota all the way down to Texas. And this is indicating very strong winds blowing over some very, very dry soils, especially in parts of Nebraska, Kansas, and coming out of Colorado and also hitting South Dakota. And my worry is when you start to see these wind speeds here getting up 50, 60, 70 miles an hour, we're going to have relatively widespread wildfire threat. And that's why the red flag warnings are out. But on the whole, as you kind of look at what's going on here, at least the jet stream is opening itself up to better chances for precip. Now, I'm not going to walk through the individual storm systems here. I just want you to see the cadence of them going forward. And we've got one coming out here Wednesday, Thursday, a second one coming out Thursday, Friday, a third one coming out of the mountains. Watch it here. That's now next Tuesday into Wednesday, next Thursday, Friday. You see how there's like 2 to 3 systems a week that are moving across the United States. And all in all, we want to see this kind of weather pattern take shape. Now, it's so mild out ahead of this where we're looking for the heaviest snows will likely be relatively far to the north. And even over the next 15 days, which I played out, yes, there's a chance of snowing through this area this weekend and then a week from now. So you've got like a Friday chance this week and a Friday chance next week. But the snowiest corridor is in through here and the west. I can't ignore the west. The fact that we're looking at over 100 inches of snow possible in the Sierra Nevada is huge, okay? But look at this. That's a concern. And this whole region to the south, of course, you're not going to see snow because it's so mild, but we're expecting it to be dry down here. So I'm looking for holes in this pattern because this is where we've got some of our bigger concerns in this central US. Like right now, we don't have any snow on the Missouri River Valley, like none at all. So I'm worried about it. I'm worried if we don't get moisture into those areas because I'm going to play this quickly, but I want you to see the end result. Over the next 15 days, who's getting the precipitation, who's not? These Great Lakes states, yeah, Iowa included, Minnesota included. I mean, look at this, though. Montana, South Dakota, Colorado, parts of Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas. That's a large area that's missing out on this. And the West is going to get quite a bit of snow out of this and quite a bit of rainfall out of this. But we have to recognize where these deficits are. And over the next 15 days, high probability of staying under a half inch of total liquid. Now, over the week 2 time frame, I do note that the jet stream position is going to shift a bit farther to the north, helping systems to eject farther to the north. But the week 2 forecasts, they're wetter. Let me just blow one of these up for you. They're wetter here and wetter there, but this just seems to continue to be a concerning area across the midsection of the country. And until that breaks down, I mean, they got time. We can get through March, and then by April and May, it's got to fill in. But if it doesn't, I'm getting concerned more and more about this particular region. All right, temperatures. Yes. Is it nice in Des Moines? I'm down in Florida. It's 71 where I am. How warm is it by you, Dawson? Are you up in the 60s already today?
I mean, we're pushing 60s today, so it's feeling pretty nice compared to what we have been here for the rest of the winter.
I know, but look at this. That's tomorrow. I've got Lincoln at 77, Des Moines at 67. By Wednesday, I'll be this kills me, man. I'm going to be in Tucson, and at home it's going to be 3 degrees warmer, 69 degrees. So this is just this big pulse of warmer air. Montana starts the week in the 60s and drops to the single digits by Thursday into Friday. Very, very cold air coming in. And that's just going to be the cadence of these weather systems. A big buildup of warmth and then a massive drop off. But overall, this is something we talked about last week that did not come into play. There's your next 5 days. That's day 5 through 10. And this is day 10 through 15. So what I'm talking about is last week I thought, oh, you know what? I think we're going to be able to get this cold air to come out and stay around for a couple of days. And the models right now are just really, really against seeing that going forward. So Dawson, that's the near-term temperature forecast. The big question is what happens when we get into March. So what do you think after these next 2 weeks, man?
Yeah, I mean, I'm asking you that. What do you think after these next 2 weeks of? I mean, yeah, let's continue that conversation. You mentioned that where we're currently sitting at with the pattern could open up a little bit of access to just potential bouts of precipitation for certain parts of the U.S. Are we going to continue to see like this split up the middle of the country, or could we see a little bit of a evening out for better access in certain areas that haven't been, either receiving it now or not quite forecasted to receive better chances yet?
All right, here's my first thought on this. Some of our longer range models, see the blue on this graphic right here? That's today through the end of February. And what that blue represents is right here over Western Canada, there's expected to be reservoirs of cold air and troughs. If that does do that, and this thing called the MJO does not sweep around or jump back into null space and come out in phase 7 and 8, I'd have to say that overall our look going forward is mild. So just watch. This is your next 7 days. This is week 2. So that's February 22nd to March 1st. Then this is the first full week of March, right? Then this is the second full week of March. And now we start to see much more mild air into this area. You combine that with the fact the polar vortex is on the other side of the planet and is expected to stay there for the next 10 to 15 days. I'd have to agree with the CPC new forecast for the end of the month. I mean, look what they did. They came back with much more mild conditions through the front half of March. Wetter Ohio Valley, wetter Northwest. Kind of follows our analogs of 18, 14, and 9 on the precip, but not on the temperatures. Those years had cold air coming through this area. So what about the precip? Well, all of our long-range models look something like this right now. That is the outlook from, let's see, the 22nd of February to the 22nd of March by the GFS. And this dryness in California is a big who cares. They're going to get so much moisture in the next 10 days, they could go the rest of the winter without getting any more, and they'll be fine. But take a look at what the European model's doing. Here is the European model forecast. Let's go all the way through the end of March. That's the full March forecast. And it's expected, and the models have been doing this, to keep this region wetter. And if it keeps dryness in Texas or dryness in the Sun Belt, we got to watch that later. But Texas can cure all of this dryness in 1 month, in April. It really can. And so I'm going to have to go with it and just say this seems to be what the models have picked up on for that kind of intermediate term forecast getting us out there to the end of March. So more mild, wetter farther to the east is the way I think it's going to shake up, Dawson.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see if the model are pretty aggressive in some of those areas, if we can kind of kick that precipitation a little bit to the west, just kind of spur up something for a lot of those crops that are developing in the South or going to be growing in the South here in the next couple of months. Moving on down to South America, though, wanting to see a little bit of the latest of what's going on down there, especially too. Soybean crop is still being harvested in Brazil. Crops are still developing in Argentina, and of course, that Brazilian safrinha corn planting that is going on. So, what's the latest down there?
Well, based off of the data I have in Mato Grosso, so they're at 51% harvested as of Friday. That's about 9% ahead of where they were, on the 5-year average. So they're still faster. Safrinha corn's going in a little late, but I don't think it matters. It's only off by 5 or 6%. I think the question is all the rains that we saw in the last week through this region is just putting a good finish on the crop. And it even rained in some of those dry spots down in Argentina. I will say this, over the next 2 weeks, watch Buenos Aires. The models have gone much drier throughout Buenos Aires over the next 2 weeks, and this could be an issue. But, and just thinking about this on the grand scale, I think that any problems in Buenos Aires can be offset by surpluses in Brazil. I just don't think it's going to be newsworthy, excuse me, that they're going over drier down here. And plus, it's not expected to be super hot. So I still don't see any sort of a weather market or scare coming out of South America to spark our markets going forward, unfortunately.
Yeah, definitely something to think about. Still got some time to go for the Argentinian crop, but I mean, it seems like for the soybeans in Brazil, I mean, we're pretty much putting a bow on that season
Yeah.
as harvest progresses through there and kind of nears that finish line here over the next few weeks. Before we started recording, though, you mentioned that you kind of wanted to take things on a little bit of a long range route and see kind of what's
Yeah.
going on or what could be going on here as we kind of move through the spring, to kind of tee up for the summer. And a lot of that conversation that we've had over these last couple of weeks has really focused on ocean temperatures. And so, kind of what are you seeing for the possibility as we, keep going through spring and getting ready for a lot of the planting season for a lot of the U.S. here soon?
Yeah, my top analogs were 18, 14, and 09 for winter. But this is the current ocean temperatures as of Saturday. So there was a couple day delay here. But take a look at 2023. So that's this year. This is 2023. Of all of the years I've listed, 14, 18, 09, 2023 is actually a little closer on how quickly the El Nino is trying to redevelop. Now, is 2023 like my analog, like the one that we should just anchor to? I don't know. I don't know, but I'll say this. Coming out of this La Nina, every major long range model has got us by like not just El Nino, but like moderate El Nino by mid to late summer. And that could be huge. So what we know about that is if we look at the forecast by the CPC just released last week, I mean, they're even pretty aggressively forecasting El Nino conditions by July, August, September. So I can show you a couple of things. This is the new March, April, May forecast by the IRI Multi-Model Probability Forecasting Group out of Columbia University. And you can see where they're keeping the dryness. So could there be an issue on wheat? Maybe. This is important. If we don't get rains here by April, that really has a detriment on the wheat crop. What about, that's March, April, May. What about April, May, June? A little bit of dryness in through here is not a problem at all. Like we'd love to see wide open windows if we could, but I don't buy it. I actually think we're wetter in this corridor as we get into April, May, and June. You then get out there to May, June, July, or let's just go all the way to June, July, August, and it's trying to anchor all of the heat and dryness in the west and give us a hot, stormy pattern in the midsection of the country. And a lot of this is based on the fact that the Gulf of Alaska temperatures in the models are expected to be hot. But I keep coming back to this, man. What if it's 2023? So I pulled something up here. Do you remember May of 2023? We had a big high pressure cell that settled over the Great Lakes, and this whole region went really dry, and we had storms all the way up the western plains and down in the southeast. Now it broke by late June, and we had a phenomenal crop across the Midwest because it stormed like mad in late June, July, and even early August. But I just don't know. There's something about 2023 that's making me scratch my head. And I even subconsciously did it when I said scratch my head. So I'm just telling you, man, I think there's something about this year that I think we should pay attention to, given that it's our most recent El Nino summer. Before that, it's 2015. So that's kind of how far back in the record books we got to go to find something like this.
And then just to wrap that up, I mean, kind of what's the time frame to be watching for that as we're still, only midway through February right now?
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, man. Okay. So between now and April, we want to watch how quickly the El Nino develops. And
Hmm.
what I really want to know is during that time frame, do we continue to get jet stream flow to come out of the southwest? If that happens, we take early season drought off the table when we talk about too tight of windows. If we can get by summer a lot of heat into this part of the ocean, then drought risk in the Midwest goes way down. But instead, if this is cold by the time we get to June, drought risk in the Midwest goes way up. And so that's what we're going to have to watch after that. So here's my rule of thumb. Between now and May, that's a long time, but between now and May, we are going to be paying attention to the storm systems that can come through and revive soil moisture. And if they do, then we don't worry about drought in the month of June. Okay. But if in late June it starts to get cold here, then the conversation for July and August is going to be heat and drought in the Midwest. Right now, I don't see it happening. I just don't. Every major model puts a lot of warmth in the ocean temperatures in the Gulf of Alaska going into summer. And if it's hot there, it is very rare that it is hot in the Gulf of Alaska and dry in the Corn Belt. So that's what I'll be watching, and that's kind of the timing.
All right. Well, lots to be watching out here for here. Just yeah, again, I just with February, I mean, we're in a lull of just watching things, kind of seeing how they develop. And so
Yeah.
always good perspective to kind of, look ahead to those next seasons on what could happen, and what to watch for from now until those periods. So always appreciate your insights, Eric, and we'll be looking out for those as that develops here as we talk going through the next few weeks.
Sounds good, man. We'll talk to you next Monday.